All right. Hello and welcome. My name is Lucinda Testo, and I am a psychotherapist and divorce recovery coach. Shell?
Hi there, I'm Sawyer. I'm a certified divorce financial analyst. I help people going through divorce make good decisions for their future and move into the next phase easily and gracefully. We're going to present
Right.
today.
Yep. So this is the workshop. So you want to get divorced. And as a therapist of 20 plus years, I am going to present from more of the emotional, psychosocial aspect, whereas Shell will present more so from the like practical and logistical aspect. So I am going to share my screen here. All right, here we go. So again, my name's Lucinda, longtime therapist, and I also do divorce recovery coaching. I'm also a former divorced mom. I got divorced, about 12 and a half years ago. My kids were super young, 4 years old and 8 months old. I am currently remarried with a blended family. So I kind of get all aspects of the divorce continuum from that contemplative stage to and through divorce and my happily ever after. So hopefully I can share some useful information with you all today. So to start, um, having done this for so long, I've kind of narrowed it down to like the top 10 reasons why people stay in unhappy and unhealthy marriages. So I'm going to go through them with you. I'm sure you could probably relate to some of them, if not all of them. And also, these are not in any particular order. Um, so they're not ranked in any way. The first one is time invested in marriage. So, especially my clients who have been married for 15, 20, 30, 40 years, to think about divorce after having spent so much time trying to make it work, that's a really hard thing to contend with. So that is definitely a reason why I see people struggle with making that decision is I've already put so much time in, like how can I just like throw in the towel? The second one, if kids are involved, of course, people are worried about the impact that a divorce will have on the kids, right? Everyone's out there. I don't want my kid, coming from a broken home. They're worried that divorce is going to screw their kids up. And what I share with people is it truly isn't. Does divorce impact kids? Absolutely, it does. Is there an adjustment period? 100%. But it's not divorce that screws kids up. It is really the parents' bad behavior, so to speak, that has the biggest negative impact on kids. So if you have parents who are triangulating kids and like talking bad about each other to the kids, if you're having your kids like deliver messages to your ex and things like that, those are horribly toxic things that you can do to your kids. And those are the things that really impact the well being of kids. So I do a lot of work around clients who struggle with this with their ex, right? Their ex is maybe bad mouthing them to the kids and things like that. But I also have clients who try to do it to about their ex to the kids. And I halt that right away. Um, Holding out hope that their partner will finally change, right? Um, we all know that our partners have good traits, right? That's why you married them to begin with. And maybe you've had a conversation or two or three or 500 over the years of, you know, what you need in the marriage to feel happier or more connected. And your partner says they're going to change, and then maybe they change for a couple of weeks and then they fall off, right? And then time goes on and it builds up for you again. And you have the conversation again. And they said, oh, I'm going to change. I'm going to change. And they change momentarily and then it goes back. So it's kind of this maybe one of these times it's going to stick, right? Mentality, um, where, right? Because it's easier to just stay married and make it work if you can. So there's holding out that hope that their partner, like this time, is going to finally change. Number four, this is a huge one I hear, especially with my female clients, is the guilt and fear of looking selfish, right? So maybe you've been unhappy for years, but you feel guilty leaving your partner because maybe you do so much for your partner, or you're worried about your partner's mental health if you should leave. You're worried about, your kids' well-being. So guilt and fear of being selfish is actually a really huge one I see in clients. Next one is fear of feeling like a failure or judgments from others. Nobody likes to feel judged. Um, I typically share with clients, my parents have now been married for, I think in May, it'll be 55 years. At the time when I got divorced, no one in my family or extended family had been divorced. And I had a lot of shame around the fact that I couldn't make my marriage work. Or maybe I could have and just didn't want to anymore because it wasn't healthy for me. Um, Everyone's always going to have an opinion. You have to really just follow what's in your heart and know that there are people out there who are going to support you. Finances is starred because that is probably in the top three things that people worry about most, right? Perhaps you're a double income home and you have no idea how you're going to make ends meet once, finances are split. Or maybe you've been a stay-at-home mom for years and you don't have um, a long-standing career to help you afford life post-divorce. This is something that is a huge concern for clients, rightfully so, with groceries as expensive as they are, with apartments as expensive as they are, forget the housing market. It is something that is really kind of can feel really scary. And that's, something that, Shell is excellent at helping clients kind of figure out and work through. Number seven, the fear of ending up alone and never finding love again. So I have some clients who were like, I'm totally fine alone, never want to date again, which is fine. And in that moment, those feelings may be true and valid for them. But most people really do, maybe because they haven't felt connected in their marriage for so long, they really do crave finding, love and connection again. And people think, like, who's going to want me? Like, I'm divorced, or I have kids, or I don't have a well-paying job. Um, so there is a fear of never finding love again. But I have countless stories of clients who I have seen, through the whole continuum of, contemplating divorce, to deciding like, yes, I'm going to go through with it, but I'm scared out of my mind, to, going through the divorce process, to being divorced, to healing and learning to love themselves again, um, to finding new love again. And, I myself am remarried. I did way better the second time around. It is possible to find love again. So, number eight is complacency. And what I mean by complacency is things aren't that bad, right? Like they're livable. Maybe you're not fighting all the time or there's no violence, but you're just kind of living in a state where things aren't that great, but like, are they that bad that I should leave? Like maybe you don't feel like your needs are being met, or maybe you feel really lonely in the marriage, or maybe you really need help, right? You need a spouse that is a true partner, and they don't really do that. But and so you're just kind of going through the motions. There are stages, people go through periods of time where things feel like complacent, and people say, well, like, shouldn't, like, can't this be good enough? And really, ultimately, like, you are the judge of that and the only one who can answer that question. Is good enough for you? Number nine is fear that their partner will change for someone else. This is actually kind of surprising to me. But I've heard it so often that I mean it's definitely valid, right? Like you've been trying to get your partner to show up in a certain way in the marriage for so long. There is fear that like, well, what if I divorce him or her and then they go out and find a new partner and they're everything to that partner that I needed them to be for me. And at the end of the day, like we can't really control whether or not that happens. What I can say is in situations where it's a toxic situation, or maybe there's addiction or there's significant mental health, and your partner chooses not to get help for those issues, chances are they're not going to be super successful in a future relationship until some of those things are addressed. And then number 10, the process of divorce feels too overwhelming. I mean, let's be honest, divorce kind of blows your life up, all the pieces land, and then you have to run around and search for them to kind of put your life back together again. So, not knowing where to begin, what finances are going to look like, where am I going to live, what is custody going to look like, if you have kids, all of that sometimes feels too daunting that it's like, is it really that bad? Do I really need to be happy? Or is anybody really happy in marriage? The answer is yes. Um, so, the process being too overwhelming is also something that, holds people back. And again, Shell and I actually share an office suite together. And when I have clients who have kind of feel like they know that they want to move forward with divorce, but the process feels overwhelming or they're worried about finances and things like that, I immediately give them Shell's information to do an exploratory call with her because she's such a wealth of information when it comes to like those, that practical and logistical parts of divorce.
Thank
Okay,
you, Lucinda.
so how do I decide? So my job as a therapist is not to convince any one of my clients one way or another. I'm not like, oh, your marriage sucks, get out of it, right? My goal is to ask you the right questions to help you get clarity around whether or not you feel like staying in your marriage is in your best interest, or if releasing it and moving on is in your best interest, right? So um the decision is ultimately yours. So, but here are some things to consider. How long have you been unhappy in your marriage? Right? Like, is this something where you've been unhappy for a few weeks, a few months, a few years? Has it been decades? Did you know pretty much on your wedding day that, this wasn't the person that you were meant to be with? Um, so asking yourself how long you've been unhappy in your marriage, is an important question, because if it's been decades, um, it there's probably not going to be a turnaround in your marriage if it's been decades. And also ask yourself, what emotional effect is your marriage having on you and on your kids? So, are you miserable all the time? Are you depressed? Do you feel unloved, unappreciated? Does it spill over to other areas of your life? Um, are you in a marriage where there's a lot of like arguing, which is not great, right, for your kids to witness? Um, even couples who say like, "Oh, we never argue in front of the kids." Kids are extremely intuitive. So even if you're not outwardly arguing, if you're ignoring each other, right? If that's the style in your marriage where like you just don't talk to each other for days, kids do pick up on that energy, right? And it can feel confusing to them, right? And asking yourself, do I have the kind of marriage that I want to model for my kids? Now, no marriage is perfect, but is this the model of a marriage that, I would want my future or my son or daughter to have sometime in the future? Something else to consider is what would you need to happen for you to stay in your marriage and be happy? And is that possible? Um, I always recommend i- if you haven't tried couples counseling, like give it a shot. Sometimes it helps to have like a neutral, objective third party, like really help you talk through things. Does couples counseling always work? Absolutely not. Sometimes people are at the point where, their spouse could wake up as the best person on the planet, right? If you're a woman, your husband could wake up tomorrow as Prince Charming, and you're so checked out that it doesn't matter what he does. It's not going to be enough for you at this point. If you've gotten to that point, counseling probably will not be super effective. But if you're not at that point, I always say give couples counseling a shot. Asking yourself, what is your biggest fear if you pursue a divorce? Lots of times we build stuff up and make things feel super scary. There is something scary about the unknown, but there also could be something totally amazing, on the other side of an unhealthy marriage. And then what is your biggest fear if you don't pursue divorce? Right? I've had people on my caseload that have been in that contemplative stage of divorce of like, should I stay? Should I go? Should I stay? Should I go? We had a really good week followed by like, 8 bad weeks. Um, what is your fear if you fast forward the clock 5 years and look back? Are you going to be like, I'm so glad I stayed? Or are you going to be like, geez, I wish I got the hell out of there? So those are some questions that you can ask yourself to maybe help you gain a little bit of clarity. And then you don't have to do this alone. Um, as I mentioned, I've been a therapist for 20 years. I also do divorce recovery coaching. So, I do offer like action oriented support to help move you towards whatever direction you want to go in. If I have a client who's like hell bent on, I really want to make my marriage work, my goal is to help give them tools to support them in that. And if they're like, no, I definitely want to, get out of this, I give them the tools to support them in that direction. Divorce recovery coaching is a passion of mine. I offer small group coaching and I do divorce recovery workshops. And that is really for people who have, gotten themselves through the divorce process. They've signed the decree, and then they're like, well, now what? Like, who am I? What do I want to do with my life? Am I ever going to find love again? People oftentimes are scared to date again because they don't want to repeat old patterns. So this is all stuff that I work on with clients, whether they're therapy clients or coaching clients. I will say that if you are a therapy client of mine, you must live in the state of Connecticut because that is where I am licensed. So I do take insurance. I take, Anthem, Blue Cross Blue Shield, United Healthcare, Connecticut, Optum, and Husky. However, if you do not have those insurances, I can bill out of network for you if that is something that is of interest for you. But for divorce recovery coaching, you can live anywhere in the world, and I can support you on your divorce recovery journey. Um, so also about my therapy sessions, I do offer them virtually, so you can live anywhere in Connecticut, or Shell and I have an office that is located in Wethersfield, Connecticut. Let's see, I already mentioned that stuff. And then this is how you can find me. So my Facebook business page is Lucinda Testo, the divorced mom coach. I am on Instagram, although I don't post there very often. My psychotherapy website is unlimitedULLC.com. And then my coaching website is lucindatesto.com. Best way to reach me is probably via email, which is lucindatesto, lucinda.testo@gmail.com. There are some days where I'm in back to back to back to back to back sessions all day long. And so it is much easier for me to respond to an email than it is for me to return a phone call. I can return phone calls, it just might take a little bit longer. You can also sign up for a consult if you go to my coaching website, lucindatesto.com. There is a calendar in there where you can sign up for a time, but the availability is small. So if you don't find a time that works for you, definitely shoot me an email and we can set up a time to connect. So with that, I will pass it back to Phil.
Thank you. Lucinda, I just have to say, like I've seen you present before, and but I always feel like I hear something different every time too.
Oh, good.
I feel like you're just a wealth of information for people, especially if they're considering divorce, being your
Thank
specialty.
you.
And yes, she is in back-to-back sessions, having sharing a suite with her. Sometimes I'm just like, I know you're there. Hello. But good information. So Lucinda mentioned that like she was talking about, more about contemplating divorce, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the logistical aspect of this. So I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully, when I think it was when you were talking about like what kind of keeps people, whether they have a fear of finances. That was like one of the big things you mentioned, that
Mhm.
was starred. And then the other was about the process, right? Like, do you really want to go through the process? I will say, mediation can be a great way to go through divorce because it does the process a lot shorter period of time. It keeps things more amicable. We'll talk about that. It is a difficult thing, but it doesn't last forever. So that's like a great thing. It does have a finite period of time. And the only way to get to the other side is through. Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit about where do you even start in this divorce process. So I'm Shel Sawyer. I had mentioned before, I'm a certified divorce financial analyst. I help clients through mediation as a personal divorce guide and financial recovery coach. My business name is Finding Strength with Shel. So here are some of the things that I'm going to talk about today. What does success look like in your divorce? What's the types of divorce that you could do? What should you do first? Right? Like I get that question a lot. What should you do first? How do you navigate the process? And tips for avoiding pitfalls, and then I'll share what I offer my clients. So what does success look like? Every divorce is very unique in itself. And what usually drives a lot of the uniqueness is your financial portfolio. So just having that financial portfolio, there might be some certain things that you can do or not do because of how that looks, right? So, really, success to me for my clients is that they have a little peace of mind, that they got everything that they deserve, that they are not taken advantage of, and you have enough money in property to start your life fresh after divorce. To me, that's what I want for all my clients, is to feel a little bit of that peace, so they can move into their next chapter a little easier and gracefully. There are certain ways you can get divorced. Most people, I'll just like, the first thing that they want to do when they decide to get divorced is they go out and hire an attorney, right? That's usually the first order of business, where I believe that the first order of business should be planning a little bit for your journey ahead, right? I'm a big planner. I like to kind of have all my I's dotted and my T's crossed. And I like to think through how to do just about anything, right? And I think divorce, it's really important to do that. So I would say before you hire anybody, think about what you want your life ahead to look like. And think about how you even want to go through divorce, right? So litigation is that typical, you each hire an attorney, they're your advocate, they fight for you, and you can wind up in a lot of conflict. It is very expensive too, so something to consider that when you do this method, it can be like $15,000 per person on average in Connecticut. So it is costly, and there could be some conflict involved, right? Because you're setting your it's very adversarial, right? So you could opt for a different method, and they're becoming more and more popular right nowadays. Mediation and collaborative divorce, because they are a little less adversarial. Mediation is very amicable, and that's I always like, what does that word even mean? It doesn't mean like, hey, you have to be kind to one another. It doesn't mean that you have to want to get divorced. It just means that you're willing to work together to move forward. And the procedure itself is very amicable, because it's almost like, I like to describe it as like a business meeting. You're coming in, you have an agenda, you're kind of checking off those things, and then the session is over and you've accomplished some things, right? And you do this until you reach a settlement. And then there's the collaborative divorce. Each spouse still has their own attorney in this. I look at this as like, it's a team approach. You work together. There's usually a certified divorce financial analyst involved. There's a couple attorneys. There's sometimes even a therapist or a divorce coach involved in these sessions. And so it can get costly, right? Because you're paying for all these people to be involved in your process, but it also helps resolve these issues without going to court, right? And sometimes that's what you want to avoid altogether anyways. So it's kind of a mix between that mediation that I talked about and that litigation. There's also pro se, which means do it yourself. You have to represent yourself in court. I don't recommend this highly. I've seen too many people get taken advantage of in this situation. Yes, you can go down to the courthouse and file your own paperwork. But there's some things there's some risks there. One of them is just, there's nothing there that kind of makes sure that everybody discloses everything, right? Even though they're have to get all their financial paperwork together. They don't have to do a discovery process. They just have to disclose it. And so that can be a big risk. Also, you don't have anybody giving you any legal advice, right? There's a place for legal advice in the litigation, the mediation, and collaborative. So you're foregoing that. And I like to say, you only get this opportunity to make this right once, right? Once you sign that document, you can't go back, right? Except with anything to do with the children, or if there's alimony in the picture. But the marital property division, you get one chance at it. So make sure you do it right the first time. I would like to go back. I know I made some fumbles in my divorce agreement, but I can't. So some decisions there. That's what I try to prevent other people from doing, is making those same mistakes that I did. So, most of the time when I'm doing consultations, it's like, where do I start? What can I be doing now to help me prepare for the road ahead? And my answer is always to gather your finances. So first and foremost, make sure you can get access to them if you can. If you can't, then there is a place, whether you work with a certified divorce financial analyst or an attorney, to be able to come up with these documents. But gather your finances. For one, it's good to know where you are at the current time. I feel like once that divorce word kind of rears its head, bad things can happen, right? Unfortunately, bad actors are in divorce. And it's a lot of times it has to do with the grief that you're feeling when divorce is on your doorstep, right? So gather your statements, your bank statements. What does your home mortgage look like at the current time? Even look at what is the what does Zillow say my house is worth at the moment? It's not as accurate as getting a real estate professional to do a competitive market analysis, but at least gives you an idea. It's something good to start with. What are your retirement statements like? Look at your tax returns. And if you can't get access to your tax returns, find them, call the IRS, get some paperwork on it, right? Run your credit report. What does that look like? I always suggest you run that every year anyways, but if there's any suspicious activity on there, it's something you need to research, great time to do it is now. And then if you have a business, what do those finances look like? This is a great place to start. It's usually the first thing that any mediator or attorney is going to ask for, or even if you did it yourself, you're going to have to fill out this financial affidavit. And so it's a really good place to start, is knowing your finances. And so how do you navigate the process, right? Every state is different. They have their own laws. It's good to do a little bit of due diligence, research what your laws are like in each state, and find out what you do. There's states that are considered fair and equitable. There's other states that are community property. Connecticut is a fair and equitable state. What does that mean? Is that they err on the side of fairness, right? Not necessarily equal, like 50-50, but I would say that's what most people start with, is like, it's going to be 50-50 unless there's something that's glaring, right? And there's a reason why it wouldn't be. But yeah, I would say fair is what you're looking for. And fair means something different to each of you, right? So working together to come up with that settlement that you both can find that is fair. Know what your priorities are, right? And move ahead being a little open-minded too, right? Do you need to hire an attorney? You definitely don't need to, especially if you're going to be going that mediation route. But there's, like I said before, there's always a place for attorneys. You get one shot to kind of get this right, and getting an attorney to even do we call it review counsel of your agreement, great thing to have done before you sign anything and you go for filing. Do I have to serve my spouse? In Connecticut, if you hire an attorney, usually that's the first thing that happens, is somebody has to be served. In mediation in Connecticut, you get to waive that. So you don't need to serve your spouse. You can start by just having a consultation and starting the process. Is there a waiting period to get divorced? In every state there is. Connecticut is 90 days, so you have to wait for that. But if you do mediation, you get to waive that too. I really think that Connecticut is a proponent of mediation, because they allow you to waive, you don't have to get nobody needs to be served, and the waiting period is let go. And yeah. So, and also another thing, like, I think this is very common. There's always some like myths about like what marital property actually is. And I feel like everybody comes in with kind of like a different perspective. They're worried that if their home is not in their name, that it's not going to be considered marital property. But it is. It doesn't matter whose name it's in, right? Marital property is, the definition of it is anything you've acquired during the course of your marriage or has increased in value. So a good thing to consider, right? That those 401ks that are in one person's name, they're always in one person's name, they are still considered marital property. So if you have any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer anything. So I put in here kind of like tips for avoiding pitfalls, okay? Some of the things that I've encountered over my years of doing mediation and being a personal divorce guide. Having cash on hand, so important, just to have something that's accessible to you, so you can hire a mediator, or you can hire a personal divorce guide, or you can get yourself going with an attorney, because they always ask for a retainer. And even if you don't need this cash, right? Maybe you just need some kind of cash available so you can get yourself some self-care right along the way, because it can be a very emotional process, right? Get prepared. Preparation makes everyone less afraid, right? And if you have that fear, Lucinda talked about the fear of finances before. You have some fear, make sure you get prepared, you get organized, and you know what to expect, navigating the process. Very important. It will make you feel much better during the process itself. I love this one. Don't mix money and emotions. In divorce, it's so easy to confuse your feelings and facts together. But if you have to keep these two things separate, right? Especially when you're talking to your attorney. Make sure you have a plan. You have things that you need to talk about. You don't need to share your emotions with the attorney. You need to get through the process, and spend your money wisely. So it's great to have somebody like Lucinda by your side, helping you in taking care of your emotions, a good support system. And fight for what is yours. And I don't mean fight like you have to battle. I mean, like, just make sure you get what you deserve out of this divorce. It's not a time to be kind or to be walked on, right, or manipulated. It's a time to get what you need. I'll just share a little bit about myself. I I was so concerned with like making sure I kept things amicable that I really didn't fight for what I needed, and it really put me in a really bad situation. I actually went through two divorces. My first one, I was young, I was naive, I shouldn't have gotten married, and he put me in a lot of debt, and I didn't even have money to buy presents for my family that first Christmas. I was living paycheck to paycheck, and had I gotten what I deserved instead of just wanting to get out, I would have been in a much better place. And I regret that and wish I could go back and do something different. Don't ignore tax consequences. Hidden taxes, there's tax issues with everything. There's even capital gains taxes that you have to be worried about if you own a home. Granted, you get to waive some of those, but knowing what these tax consequences are on retirement funds and anything that you have is really a good idea. And then have a good team, have a good support system by your side. It's too complicated really to go alone. Make sure you have someone like Lucinda by your side. Therapy is great while you're going through divorce. And yeah, I can't say enough about that. I think that's having people by your side is important during this time. So my services that I offer. I offer being a personal divorce guide. So what does this entail? It is helping you get prepared, helping you get organized, understand what you owe and own. Every person is different, so I support you along your journey. Whatever your needs are, I'm there for you. Whether you need to get prepared, whether you just need somebody to support you on your journey, make sure you're making those good decisions, and talking through it. We design settlement options that are good for you, helping you negotiate those too, right? Negotiation is an art. And so we walk through tips and tricks on how to do that effectively. I have some trusted partners like Lucinda that I connect you with. And the biggest benefit is saving money, because you're keeping your emotions and your financial with me, and you can make some good decisions along the way. So financially, you'll be in a better place. I am a mediator, so I help couples make good decisions together. I'm not an advocate for one or the other, rather both of them together. Mediation is definitely less stressful, less cost, takes less time, and I give you clear data to help you make those decisions. I offer some suggestions, some advice along the way, but you are in charge of making your own decisions. And I feel like that's one of the biggest benefits here. There's two. One is that you can make your own, right? You can be as creative as you want. But another thing is like, it is an amicable process, so it's setting your children up for success. You're going to be good co-parents after this is done, because you've made these decisions together and hopefully comply with the decisions that are in your agreement. So, and then I'm a financial recovery coach. It's really like what happens, right? Once you're on your own in your new chapter and you have to deal with your finances for the first time, maybe. And other times, like it just might look a little different. You had two incomes supporting, maybe had two incomes supporting, your life, and now it's just you, and how to make that effective. Learn about your relationship with money, how to conquer that cash flow that you have, and maybe like depending on what happened with your settlement, you might have a little debt that you have to get rid of, right? So how do you do that effectively, and create some financial freedom? So I just had a book released yesterday, actually. It's called You Are Not Alone. It's a guide for when divorce is on your doorstep. Doorstep, ooh. Lucinda actually did the forward in it. So I'd love to have you download it. It's actually free to download until Sunday. And you can get a copy of your own guide, and hopefully it's just a companion while you are contemplating going through the divorce and then what to do after. I do have a women supporting other women support group coming up. It's going to start on Tuesday, January 14th. I can't believe I'm even talking about January of 2025. It's going to be an 8-week program. It's going to be on Tuesdays. It's going to be in my office in Wethersfield. Love to have you join us. And this is how you can reach me. Learn about me through findingstrengthwithshell.com. I'll help you get prepared, know what's needed to get successful. Let's just have a quick 30-minute exploratory conversation. Maybe it's just me sharing some information with you as well. Happy to help in any way that I can. So get in touch with me. I'm going to stop sharing now.
And then, Shell, just to clarify for our listeners, with your services, if you are doing mediation, then you cannot, like one side of the couple cannot partake in, like,
Personal divorce guide. Yeah.
right, the personal divorce guide, right? It's kind of like an either or.
It is an either or, because mediation, you have to be a third party neutral. So, in order,
Okay.
yeah, for me to stay neutral, I couldn't work with you as a personal divorce guide. But if you
But
want,
once you help them through the divorce process, if the husband or wife after the fact decides, I need help with my finances, could one of them hire you then as the
good
financial
question.
recovery?
Yeah, yes, because the
Okay.
process is over. Yeah,
Okay.
the process is over. I can definitely help you with the financial recovery. Yeah.
Great.
And I do have good mediation resources if somebody wanted to use me for a personal divorce guide. Um, yeah, I have some good referral partners that I can offer for mediation. Yeah. So thank you for
Great.
asking questions.
Sure.
Yeah.
So this concludes our presentation. We hope that this was worth your time. You can reach out to either Shell or myself if either one of us could be of assistance on your journey. Shell, do you have any closing words?
No, we're here for you. Whatever you need, feel free to reach out. Happy to help in any way that we can.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.